Hi, Carrie Burchell here with another episode of Shine Like a North Star. Very happy to have you join on our live today. One of the goals of these live videos is to really empower you as a leader with some strategies to shine like a North Star. So, one of the things that I really see relevant in today's leadership is that difficulty that we have as leaders to pull out of the day-to-day spin, that firefighting, the go, go, go. You ever have your situation where your to-do list is longer at the end of the day than it was when you started? Yeah, and that stuff that you wanted to get done is there on the same list day after day after day, right? So many of my clients across the nation, as well as across industries, are really describing this persistent pressure and overwhelm, frankly, in their leadership roles. It's ubiquitous, it's everywhere. So let's talk about some strategies to help you pull out of the spin, because the truth sayer in me, not slayer, but sayer, if that's even a word, is really wanting to call out the fact that it does not look like the spin is going to suddenly change, right? The environment, economics, staffing shortages, all the realities that you face in your leadership are persistent, and it doesn't look like there's a magic solution around the corner, right? So it's on us as leaders to slow down our own spin so that in turn we can help our staff and teams slow down the spin, because that's where the more effective work starts to happen. So let's dive into some strategies where you can feel empowered to help slow down and get specific. The first overarching category I want to talk about is how we facilitate collaborative time and space together. You might think of these as meetings, right? And I'm purposely not using that term in this live because meetings should really be a collaborative space. It's not where we dump out information or anything. It's space where we can collaborate and get things done. Now, I don't know of anybody in any organization that wouldn't wish that there were less meetings. Well, let's talk about how to make those meetings productive and where you slow down to go fast. You slow down to get specific so that you can move things forward. All right, first strategy is this concept of having voluntary meetings. As a leader, if you're running a good meeting and you're sharing relevant information that's going to help your team and leaders thrive, then they're going to want to come to the voluntary meeting. So I've got a client that does a beautiful job of this. This person is a vice president. They have 80-ish, I'm saying maybe more, direct and indirect reports, all in leadership positions. And so this VP says, come to the meeting. If you can't, we're going to record it. I'd love you to be there so that you can get some of the information. We can role play out how we're going to communicate different initiatives. We're going to problem solve. You're going to hear presentations from other people in the organization that have sort of cutting edge knowledge that you need to know. Beautiful, right? It's collaborative, it's purposeful, and it's voluntary. So quickly as a leader, you can really get a sense of where your leaders are at by how many attend. You can get a sense of where they're at by how many questions and what the interactivity is with it. It's just a beautiful way to see if you're hitting the mark as a leader. Are you giving people valuable information to the point that they choose to come to a voluntary meeting? Yeah. So that's strategy number one to pull out of the spin. Next thing is ask people anytime you have a collaborative space or a time that you're together. It could just be a chit chat around the water cooler. It could be a formal collaborative time. Ask them what their takeaways are of the information. It doesn't have to be what you've said and what your takeaways are. Ask them. Maybe someone else has led an agenda item. Ask the whole team. So in so-and-so's agenda item, what's your takeaway from that? This gives people a space to show up. If you have communicated a bunch of information and your team is silent when you say what's your biggest takeaway, that's a red flag for you as a leader around a few things that could be happening, right? Their engagement, your communication, what else they have going on their plate. So really slow down to ask people what their takeaways are, right? So the voluntary meeting is one because they have to slow down to come to your meeting. The second one is asking them what their biggest takeaways are because they have to slow down enough to sort of put their thoughts together. And in that day-to-day firefighting, that spin, it's really hard for people to actually grab the moments that it takes to put ideas together and think about information and how it applies to our daily work. I know it sounds like so simple when I say moments, but sometimes slowing down is just that quick. Whew, and if we don't get out of that spin, we're going to feel pretty nauseous at the end of a day of work. Next thing is to devote the first 5 minutes of any collaborative time to just organic touching base. We know that if teams trust each other, they're going to be more productive, right? So create a space for people to interact, build that trust, get to know each other. The fact that you're slowing down for the first 5 minutes of that collaborative time together is going to make the actual work you do so much more productive and efficient. Sounds unbelievable. Try it. I've seen leaders do this with the clients that I support, and they are amazed at how it works. Now, I give you the heads up, it feels pretty awkward. It feels awkward. Teams aren't used to this chance to slow down, right? So if a leader says, hey, we're just going to set a timer on my phone, 5 minutes to just like, hey, how is everyone? What's new in your world? What's going on? And really try to keep it around that idea of connection and not so much like update on work, right? Information pushing. So that's a powerful one that may be underestimated. The next one is to really share your role as the facilitator of these collaborative times. Just because you're the leader doesn't mean you have to lead all of the times your team and people get together. Share that weight, right? It gives you as a leader the win of just more time to kind of process and think and observe how people on your team are showing up. And anytime we empower people with a situation where they can control some of the environment, winner, chicken dinner, right? That person who now gets to lead the meeting, certainly they're going to have some trepidation. It's going to be stressful. There's a few things that are going to go on through their minds. At the end of the day, they're going to like it because they get to run the meeting their way, right? And you're less under the microscope for doing it your way. Just everybody has a style. Let's express that style, kind of share the work and help people feel empowered and in control of what they can control. The next one is to actually have specific roles for attendees. So when I talk about specific roles, let me give you some examples. First one here is to have a timekeeper. So think about someone who's gonna literally set a time to tell you how often they're going to meet. Like not how often they're gonna meet, how many minutes they're gonna spend on each agenda item, right? So the person who brings up whatever needs to be talked about, ask them, how many minutes do you need for this item? And the timekeeper is going to say, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, whatever that is. Another one is to have the task master, meaning we're going to stay on task. So, we just had 5 minutes devoted to this item. Let's talk about that thing that you just rabbit holed us down and really focus on this. So the taskmaster's job is to keep it on task. I love Toastmasters. One of the roles they have in Toastmasters is taskmaster. Let's keep it moving. Let's keep it on point. It kind of holds people's feet to the fire and less of that BMWing, bitching, moaning, whining, right? We're not driving a BMW here. We're moving forward in this collaborative time to get things done. The third role you might want to think about is a minute taker, right? So think about how the minutes are going to be dispersed. If I'm on holidays and there's a meeting, how am I going to get caught up, right? Or if there's a question next time we meet and someone tries to rabbit hole us again, we pull up last week's meeting minutes and we say, we did decide this already. We don't have to regurgitate the content and the discussion all over again because that's a BMW move. Last role I want to think about here is share the air monitor, meaning have somebody on your team be responsible for making sure that everyone has equal voice, right? And that person's job is to say, if you're talking nonstop, they can just say, hang on, I'm just share the air monitor. Let's see how we can really balance the airspace here. And it's their job to do that. And so when they call people out for kind of monopolizing, that's what they're supposed to do. So no one takes offense because that's what they're supposed to do, right? So those roles can make people pull out of the spin. So today's live is all about pulling out of that spin. We don't want you going home nauseous because it's just been insane lately. So share the air, minute taker, taskmaster, timekeeper, all of those specific roles are going to help you help others pull out of the spin. A couple more just nuggets to share with you. So be sure that your meetings are collaborative. So I've used the term collaborative gatherings. I often see meetings when I'm coaching people and just kind of getting in the trench to see what their communication and how the team work goes, I see lots of meetings where there's a lot of like information push. So I'm telling you a bunch of things, the leader's downloading a bunch of information. That's going to stifle collaboration. It's going to stifle problem solving. It's going to add to people's spin. So the suggestion here is to share information beforehand. Now, if you're a leader who has a lot to share, make it in a quick video like this. Talk at people for 5, 6, 7 minutes, probably a lot faster than if you had to type out a long diatribe of beautiful information that they need to know. So you can video it, you can type it up, you can voice memo it, you can guide them to some links where they have to look at data so that they just get exposed to the information. It's not you summarizing the information. All of that stuff is ways to hold people accountable to come prepared. Pull out of the spin. If you as a leader don't ask your team to do something to pull out of the spin, they won't get out of the spin because we're all spinning. Like no judgment, no good, bad. It's just the pressures out there make it so that we all spin. So if you send the information out beforehand and then you come to the meeting, be very disciplined to not review the information that was sent out. Initially, people are not going to be used to this. They're used to people pushing the information out. So really nurture and be disciplined to, well, you'll have to get caught up after that. I sent that information out already. Let's move on and decide what we're going to do with this information that, well, you didn't read. Right? Hold their feet to the fire, and you're not really doing it around accountability. You're doing it around this expectation that if we don't pull out of the spin, we're not going to get anywhere. Right? We're going to spin, and all of our energy is going to be used up spinning, the exhaustion that comes out of spinning. So that's a discipline one, not more energy, but really discipline to share the information beforehand and hold people accountable to do that. Right? Hold them accountable to pull out of the spin. Lastly is that meetings are collaborative and not information sharing. I had 2 of those. Obviously a very important point I wanted to share you with today, right? Okay, so let's help each other pull out of the spin. That's my big message to you today. We're spinning. It doesn't look like the pressures and the magical solutions are going to be flying down at us, right? It is tough out there, leaders. I see how hard you work. I've been doing a bunch of keynotes lately, and I tease the audiences because I can see the leaders, running away to discreet places where they can make some phone calls. They're opening up their laptops, trying to squeeze in a couple of emails before and in between sessions. So it's just the pressure is relentless. I see you. I see how hard you're working. I see the toll that spin is taking on you. So structures drive behavior. As a leader, you put in the structures, like we've just talked about in this live, to drive the outcomes that you want to see and the way you want your leaders to show up. It's on you. You create the structures. So I hope those tips help. I'd love to be in touch with you. You can check me out at carriebirchall.com. You feel free to email me or text or whatever means is easiest for you when it comes to connecting and shining like a North Star.